Emma Carter's boots crunched on the gravel path leading to the massive gates of the United States Military Training Academy. The early morning sun painted the sky in streaks of orange and pink, but its beauty did little to calm the storm in her chest. Her heart pounded like a drum, a rhythm of nerves and anticipation. She had waited years for this moment, and now that it had arrived, she felt the full weight of expectation pressing on her shoulders. Not just her own, the memories of her father, a decorated veteran who had instilled in her the belief that she could achieve anything, hovered in her mind like a guiding spirit. The academy loomed before her like a fortress of steel and discipline. Its towering buildings, rows of perfectly trimmed lawns, and the distant clatter of drill exercises conveyed authority and tradition. Emma tightened the straps of her duffel bag, feeling the weight of her gear against her back. Each step closer to the academy's entrance made her stomach tighten, but she squared her shoulders and held her chin high. This was her chance to prove herself, not just to others, but to herself. As she approached the main courtyard, a group of male recruits noticed her and exchanged whispered comments. Some smirked, others glanced with curiosity tinged with doubt. "Another girl thinks she can handle this," one muttered under his breath. Emma felt their eyes on her, weighing her, judging her, but she refused to let their skepticism penetrate her focus. She had faced doubt her entire life, from classmates who laughed at her athletic dreams to strangers who assumed she couldn't succeed in a male-dominated field. She had learned early on that resilience was forged in the fire of others' disbelief. The academy's commanding officer, a stern woman with sharp eyes, walked through the courtyard, inspecting the new recruits. Her gaze lingered briefly on Emma, assessing her posture, her expression, her resolve. There was a silent acknowledgement, a recognition that this young woman, though small in stature compared to some of the men, possessed something the others might not: determination. Emma met the officer's gaze and held it, a flicker of courage igniting in her chest. She didn't flinch, didn't shrink. This was her moment to announce, silently but clearly, that she belonged. Flashbacks crept into Emma's mind as she took her place among the recruits. She remembered sitting on her father's lap as a child, listening to his stories of bravery, discipline, and sacrifice. He had always told her, courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about moving forward even when fear is a constant companion. Those words resonated now, stronger than ever. She could almost hear him whispering encouragement, reminding her that she was capable of more than she had ever allowed herself to believe. His presence, though gone, was palpable, guiding her like an invisible hand. The training grounds were alive with noise, shouts of instructors, the clatter of boots, the sharp commands cutting through the morning air. Emma's pulse synced with the rhythm of the academy, her senses sharpening. Every glance, every movement around her carried significance. She noticed the subtle ways some recruits tried to assert dominance, their eyes flicking to her with curiosity or disdain. Some whispered insults under their breath. Others outright ignored her presence, assuming she would falter. Emma allowed herself a brief inward smile. Let them doubt her. Their skepticism would be her fuel. Her first encounter with the drill instructors was intimidating. The commanding sergeant, a towering man with a voice that boomed like thunder, scrutinized the new recruits. "Form up," he barked. Emma moved quickly, her steps precise, her posture unwavering. The men beside her glanced at her with surprise. She moved with a quiet confidence they hadn't expected. The sergeant's eyes narrowed, assessing her, and for a fleeting moment, Emma felt the intensity of scrutiny like a physical weight pressing down on her. She reminded herself to breathe, to focus, to channel every ounce of preparation and determination into her movements. The first obstacle she faced was deceptively simple: a high wall, slick with morning dew, that many recruits approached with caution. Emma studied it carefully, mapping her grip and footing in her mind. She had practiced for this moment countless times, training alone in secret, pushing her body beyond limits she hadn't thought possible. With a deep breath, she launched herself toward the wall, muscles straining, hands gripping the rough surface. The wall seemed to resist her, but she pressed onward. Every inch conquered a small victory. At the top, she paused, chest heaving, and surveyed the ground below. The other recruits stared, some in disbelief, some in grudging admiration. Even as she descended, a new challenge presented itself. A group of men had formed a subtle blockade, whispering, nudging, testing her patience and resolve. Emma didn't respond with words. Instead, she focused on the task at hand, navigating around them with agility and calm precision. Every movement was deliberate, a demonstration of her determination. She wasn't here to prove them wrong with confrontation. She was here to prove herself right through action, through skill, and through unyielding resolve. By the time the morning exercises concluded, Emma felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. Her body ached, but her spirit soared. She had survived the first day among warriors, and she had done so on her own terms. As the recruits filed back to the barracks, whispers of admiration began to circulate, tempered by lingering doubt. Emma ignored the gossip. She knew this was only the beginning. Every day would present new challenges, new skeptics, new moments to demonstrate her strength. And she was ready. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the training grounds, Emma stood alone for a moment, reflecting. She thought of her father, of the years of preparation, of every sacrifice and moment of doubt she had overcome to arrive here. She realized that being at the academy wasn't just about physical endurance or tactical skill. It was about heart, about courage, about proving, in every small and monumental way, that determination could outweigh prejudice, that persistence could forge respect, and that one person, against all odds, could redefine expectations. Emma's arrival had been quiet, almost understated, but its impact was already rippling through the ranks. The whispers, the skeptical glances, the unspoken challenges, they were all catalysts. And she welcomed them because they would soon learn what she already knew. Strength, resolve, and courage couldn't be intimidated. The morning fog still clung to the training grounds as Emma Carter began her second day at the military academy. The air was sharp with cold, and every breath she drew felt like fire in her lungs, yet she welcomed the discomfort. Each day here tested not only the body but the mind, and Emma knew that the real trials were just beginning. While the physical challenges would push her to the brink, the social obstacles were subtler, more insidious. The invisible walls built by doubt, prejudice, and disbelief. From the moment she stepped into the mess hall for breakfast, the cold shoulder was evident. Groups of male recruits sat together, whispering behind hands or exchanging sly smirks as she passed. The conversations quieted whenever she drew near, replaced by sideways glances and barely concealed amusement. Emma felt their scrutiny like a physical weight pressing on her chest. Some of the men didn't even try to hide their assumptions. They clearly believed she was here as a token, someone destined to fail. Even her teammates, the ones she would be paired with in training, treated her with subtle disdain. Supplies were accidentally left out of reach when she needed them. Ropes, weights, and packs were shuffled in ways that created small obstacles. She would later learn that this was part of a psychological test, though not officially sanctioned, a way for recruits to measure whether she could endure social isolation alongside physical strain. But Emma didn't perceive it as cruelty. She perceived it as another challenge, another chance to prove herself. Rather than reacting with frustration, she adapted. She moved with precision, anticipating obstacles, maintaining her focus, and letting her performance speak. During drills, she positioned herself to maximize efficiency and conserve energy. While some recruits tried to distract her with teasing or condescension, Emma ignored the chatter. Each sarcastic remark, each scoff, was absorbed and transformed into determination. She didn't need to respond with words. Her silence, her composure, and her relentless drive began to speak louder than any insult ever could. After breakfast, the first challenge of the day awaited, a series of obstacle drills designed to test strength, endurance, and agility. Emma's pack was heavier than the men's, a subtle intimidation tactic, but she adjusted her movements, using leverage, balance, and technique to maintain pace. She scaled walls, swung across bars, and crawled under low obstacles, each movement deliberate and calculated. Her mind, trained to remain calm under pressure, guided her body with meticulous precision. By the end of the course, though her muscles burned and sweat stung her eyes, she had completed it efficiently, drawing quiet admiration from some of the male recruits, though they were too proud to acknowledge it openly. The subtle challenges didn't stop on the obstacle course. During a tactical simulation later that morning, Emma was paired with a male recruit who clearly wanted to test her resolve. He intentionally took a poor position, leading her to adjust and compensate for his errors. Other recruits snickered, anticipating her failure. But Emma's focus never wavered. She anticipated every move, corrected mistakes in real time, and completed the exercise with flawless execution. She didn't just survive the test. She excelled in it, demonstrating an innate ability to adapt, lead, and perform under pressure. By midday, Emma felt the exhaustion settling into her bones. Every step, every breath, felt heavier, but she welcomed the pain. She knew that the academy didn't just reward raw strength or talent. It rewarded endurance, resilience, and an unbroken spirit. That afternoon, while other recruits rested, she sought solitude in a quiet courtyard, performing push-ups, sit-ups, and sprints in near silence. The cold wind whipped against her skin, but she pushed through it, whispering her father's mantra under her breath. Pain is temporary. Pride is forever. Even as she trained alone, Emma was aware of the eyes on her. A few recruits paused in the hallways, watching her with curiosity. Some seemed to reconsider their assumptions, though pride prevented them from admitting it aloud. She sensed the tension in the air, the mixture of skepticism, envy, and slowly growing respect. Emma didn't let herself feel triumphant. Instead, she used every glance, every subtle doubt cast her way, as motivation. Every whispered remark, every snicker, every challenge became fuel for the fire that burned in her chest. By the end of the day, Emma's resilience had begun to make waves. The drill instructors, usually impassive and unflappable, exchanged glances during the evening briefing. They noted her focus, her precision, and her ability to maintain composure in a hostile environment. One instructor approached her quietly and said, "Keep pushing. You've got potential that most of them don't even realize." Emma nodded silently, knowing that encouragement from the instructors was rare, earned only by those who demonstrated exceptional commitment and skill. That evening, as she returned to her barracks, Emma reflected on the day. The men had tried to intimidate her, to isolate her, to undermine her confidence with subtle jabs and whispered doubts. Yet she had not only endured, but had begun to thrive. Every challenge, whether overt or hidden, had strengthened her resolve. She realized that this was more than physical training. This was a test of character, patience, and courage. She was learning not just how to survive in a hostile environment, but how to dominate it with quiet strength. As night fell, Emma prepared for another round of personal training. The barracks were silent, except for the distant sounds of other recruits moving through routines. She laced up her boots, tightened her gloves, and stepped outside into the cool night air. Under the dim glow of a single lamp, she practiced maneuvers she had mastered only through countless hours of solitary preparation. Every movement was deliberate, a combination of strength, technique, and mental discipline. She pushed herself to the brink, knowing that these secret hours would be the difference when the real challenge arrived. By the time Emma returned to her bunk, exhaustion had settled deep into her muscles, but a sense of triumph surged in her chest. She had navigated the first full day of the academy, faced deliberate attempts at intimidation, and emerged not just unbroken, but stronger and more focused. Her determination was now a tangible force, a presence that others would soon have to reckon with. For the first time, she felt a quiet confidence settle within her, the knowledge that she could endure anything, overcome anyone, and when the moment came, rise above every expectation. Emma lay down on her bunk, staring at the ceiling, letting the silence and darkness wrap around her. She understood that the days ahead would be even more grueling, physically, mentally, and socially. Yet for the first time, doubt had no place in her mind. She was ready to face every sneer, every doubt, every hidden challenge with the same unyielding resolve she had demonstrated today. She wasn't just a recruit anymore. She was a force to be reckoned with, and everyone at the academy would soon understand that fact. The first day had been a trial. The second day had proven her resilience. And tomorrow, Emma knew, would bring the moment when she could begin to show the academy and herself the full measure of her strength. The sun had barely risen when Emma Carter arrived at the training grounds for what would become the most grueling challenge yet, the obstacle course designed to push every recruit to their absolute limit. This course was infamous at the academy, earning a reputation as a rite of passage that broke the weak and elevated the strong. Even seasoned recruits whispered warnings about its brutal demands. The high walls, the mud pits, the ropes that tested grip, and the endless physical strain. Emma felt the familiar burn of nerves in her stomach, but beneath it simmered determination. She had endured ridicule, isolation, and subtle sabotage, and now she faced a challenge that would test not only her body, but the strength of her mind. The other recruits gathered at the starting line, sizing each other up. Many were taller, heavier, or visibly more muscular than Emma. She felt their stares, the silent judgment, the undercurrent of doubt. Some muttered predictions of her failure under their breath. She ignored them. Experience had taught her that the loudest skeptics often underestimated the quietest contenders. She tightened the straps of her pack, inhaled deeply, and focused on a single thought, one obstacle at a time. The whistle blew, echoing across the training grounds, and the course erupted into motion. Emma sprinted forward, her legs pumping with power honed through months of preparation. The first wall loomed ahead, taller than she expected. While other recruits hesitated or approached with caution, Emma calculated her approach. With a running start, she leapt, her hands gripping the cold, rough surface. Her muscles screamed in protest, her palms burned, but she heaved herself over the wall, landing with a thud on the other side. She barely had a moment to catch her breath before the next challenge awaited. Mud pits, slippery and treacherous, stretched across the path. Emma plunged into the muck, feeling it cling to her legs and weigh her down. Some recruits faltered here, slipping and sliding, losing precious time. Emma focused on balance, keeping her center of gravity low, moving with deliberate precision. Every slip became an opportunity to adjust, every stumble a lesson in resilience. She crawled through the mud, grit filling her teeth and burning her skin, yet she refused to slow. The cold, the exhaustion, the discomfort, all of it fed her determination. She would not fail, not here, not now. By the halfway mark, her arms ached from climbing ropes, swinging bars, and hauling her weight through grueling tests of strength. Her legs were heavy, her lungs burning with every breath. Sweat stung her eyes, and her gloves were torn and bloodied. Some recruits began to falter, their bodies refusing to cooperate. Emma felt the familiar whisper of doubt attempt to creep into her mind, but she silenced it immediately. This was not the time for hesitation. She reminded herself of her father's words. Courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about moving forward when fear is your constant companion. The next challenge was a series of towering walls connected by narrow beams. Many recruits approached with trepidation, some even attempting to bypass sections entirely, losing time and risking penalties. Emma studied each wall, mapping her path with precision. She moved fluidly, using her momentum and balance to traverse the beams with a confidence that drew quiet attention from those around her. Every step required focus. Every movement demanded skill. One wrong misstep would send her crashing to the ground. She felt the pressure, but it sharpened her senses, heightening her awareness, making her movements more precise. Halfway through, a group of male recruits, noticing her progress, began to watch more intently. Some whispered, "She might actually make it," though few admitted it aloud. Their doubt and surprise became a silent chorus in her mind, fueling a competitive fire she had never experienced. Emma pushed harder, climbing walls, swinging across bars, and vaulting over obstacles with a combination of strength, agility, and mental focus. She was no longer just a participant in the course. She was a force moving with purpose, a presence that commanded attention despite her smaller frame. As the course continued, the fatigue became almost unbearable. Her lungs burned, her hands throbbed, and her muscles screamed in protest. Emma felt herself teetering on the edge of collapse, the physical exhaustion threatening to overtake her. But she had prepared for this moment, trained for these seconds where the body wants to give up, but the mind refuses to surrender. She dug deep, calling on every ounce of training, every lesson from long nights of solitary practice, every memory of her father's encouragement. She reminded herself that endurance wasn't just physical. It was mental, emotional, and spiritual. The final obstacle loomed, a towering rope climb, followed by a leap to a small platform suspended above the ground. Many recruits had failed here in the past, miscalculating their jump or losing grip on the rope. Emma approached with focus, feeling the rope's rough fibers bite into her hands. She climbed steadily, arm by arm, her body shaking with exhaustion, her legs burning from every previous exertion. When she reached the top, she paused for a heartbeat, letting her mind calculate the leap. The distance seemed daunting, almost impossible in her fatigued state, yet she visualized success and launched herself with precise timing. Landing squarely on the platform, she steadied herself and sprinted to the finish line. Her entire body was trembling as she gasped for air, lungs burning, heart racing. Around her, other recruits were still struggling, some having fallen behind entirely. Emma had completed the obstacle course, not by luck, but by determination, preparation, and unyielding will. She stood there for a moment, sweat and mud covering her, muscles screaming, yet she felt a profound sense of triumph. Some recruits glanced at her with newfound respect, though few admitted it openly. The instructors nodded subtly, recognizing her resilience and skill. Emma didn't celebrate yet. She knew the real tests were still to come. This victory, while significant, was merely a step along the path. She had proven endurance, but soon she would face challenges of precision, strategy, and confrontation, moments where raw strength alone would not suffice. As she walked back to the barracks, every ache in her body reminded her that pain was temporary, but the pride earned through perseverance was lasting. She reflected on the subtle attempts by others to intimidate or undermine her, and she realized that each challenge had been a gift. They had forced her to dig deeper, to push further, and to discover strength she hadn't known she possessed. Emma understood that this was the essence of the academy, forging warriors not just in body, but in spirit. That evening, as darkness fell over the academy grounds, Emma sat alone in the quiet of the courtyard, stretching her sore muscles and reflecting on the day's trials. Her hands were blistered, her clothes soaked in sweat and mud, but a quiet satisfaction radiated from her. She had faced doubt, fatigue, and subtle sabotage, and she had triumphed. In the stillness of night, she made a promise to herself. Tomorrow, she would push harder, train smarter, and prove that no obstacle, physical, social, or psychological, could ever deter her from her path. Emma Carter had reached a critical turning point. She had survived the breaking point of endurance, but in doing so, she had transformed. No longer merely a recruit among many, she was emerging as a contender, someone whose resolve could not be underestimated. The whispers of doubt and skepticism that followed her at breakfast had begun to fade. The journey was far from over, but Emma had proven one undeniable truth. When determination meets preparation, no obstacle is insurmountable. The morning air was crisp and tense as Emma Carter approached the training field. After the grueling obstacle course, most recruits were exhausted, bruised, and nursing minor injuries. Yet, Emma felt a quiet fire burning in her chest, fueled by triumph and a growing sense of purpose. She had proven herself physically, but the academy had a way of revealing vulnerabilities in unexpected ways. Today's challenge would not merely test strength or endurance. It would test strategy, focus, and psychological resilience. Emma sensed the weight of the day before even stepping onto the field. The recruits were lined up for the tactical drill, a simulation that combined combat exercises, critical thinking, and teamwork. Each participant was paired with a partner, often deliberately chosen by instructors to push limits. When Emma's name was called, she was paired with Staff Sergeant Blake, a muscular, imposing figure known for his aggressive tactics and competitive nature. The whispers among the other recruits grew louder. Blake had a reputation for intimidating newcomers, and it was clear from the smirk on his face that he intended to make Emma's experience miserable. Before the drill began, Blake approached, his shadow falling over her as he towered slightly above her. "You really think you can handle this?" he asked with a sneer, his tone dripping with condescension. "Most women don't last 10 minutes in this drill." The group of recruits around them chuckled quietly, some barely suppressing laughter. Emma's jaw tightened, her knuckles clenching reflexively. She didn't answer, didn't flinch. Words were useless here. Performance was everything. She met his gaze directly, her eyes steady, conveying a calm determination that unsettled him more than any verbal retort could. The instructor, a battle-hardened veteran with decades of experience, gave a brief rundown of the drill. It was a timed tactical simulation involving multiple objectives: navigating obstacles, retrieving equipment, and securing a designated hostage target. Precision, speed, and strategy were paramount. Mistakes were punished with time penalties. Emma studied the course carefully, mapping out the route in her mind. She knew every second would matter, and a single misstep could cost her team victory. She also knew Blake would be watching, testing her at every turn. As the whistle blew, the drill began. Blake immediately charged with aggressive intensity, trying to dominate the course and assert control over Emma. He barked orders, attempting to position her behind him to make her the weak link in their team. Emma, however, had anticipated this behavior. She moved fluidly alongside him, countering his momentum when necessary, and making precise tactical decisions without hesitation. She adapted to his aggression, redirecting energy rather than opposing it head-on, turning what he perceived as her weakness into her advantage. The other recruits watched with growing astonishment. The whispers of doubt from earlier were replaced by quiet murmurs of surprise. Emma's movements were calculated, confident, and efficient. She navigated obstacles with agility, adjusted on the fly to Blake's unpredictable tactics, and completed objectives without hesitation. Blake attempted to disrupt her rhythm, nudging, shoving, and issuing sharp commands, but Emma remained unshaken. Each attempt he made to intimidate her was absorbed and redirected, demonstrating a level of composure and strategy few had expected. Halfway through the drill, they encountered a complex obstacle that required precise coordination to complete. Blake, growing frustrated at her resistance to intimidation, took an overly aggressive approach, attempting to take control of the entire maneuver. Emma calmly assessed the situation, anticipated his missteps, and executed a flawless counter-strategy. Her precise timing and keen awareness allowed them to complete the obstacle faster than anticipated. For the first time, Blake faltered, his confidence cracking under the weight of her competence. The group of spectators around them gasped at the sight, realizing that Emma was not merely keeping up, she was dominating. Despite her growing success, Emma faced moments of real danger. A miscalculated leap could send her falling. A mistimed maneuver could cost precious seconds. Each time, she relied on her preparation, intuition, and unwavering focus. Her father's mantra echoed in her mind: pain is temporary. Pride is forever. Every doubt whispered by Blake, every smirk from surrounding recruits, became fuel to sharpen her resolve. The fear of failure was present, but it did not dictate her actions. Precision, strategy, and mental fortitude did. As the drill reached its climax, Blake launched a final, aggressive attempt to assert dominance, lunging toward her in an overconfident maneuver. Emma anticipated his approach within a fraction of a second, using his own momentum against him. In a seamless motion, she evaded, redirected, and completed the final objective with precision, crossing the finish line moments before him. The silence that followed was deafening. In that instant, the calculated trap designed to break her confidence had backfired entirely. Emma stood victorious, not only completing the drill, but dominating it, leaving no doubt of her skill and resilience. The instructor's voice cut through the stunned silence. Carter wins. Outstanding performance. The words echoed across the field, commanding the attention of every recruit present. Blake, flushed with frustration and disbelief, struggled to regain composure. Even he had to acknowledge, begrudgingly, that Emma's victory was undeniable. The other recruits, who had quietly anticipated her failure, now regarded her with a mixture of awe, respect, and a reluctant sense of humility. Emma's calm confidence, precision, and mental fortitude had turned what was intended to be a trap into a moment of undeniable triumph. After the drill, Emma retreated to a quiet corner of the training grounds, her body tense and her muscles aching. She allowed herself a brief moment to breathe, reflect, and absorb the significance of what had just occurred. The trap had tested more than her physical ability. It had tested her confidence, her mental resilience, and her capacity to remain unshaken under direct intimidation. In passing, she realized that this was not merely about winning drills. It was about forging strength of character in the crucible of challenge. That evening, in the barracks, the whispers of Emma's victory traveled quickly. A few recruits approached cautiously, offering quiet congratulations, their expressions a mix of admiration and lingering disbelief. Emma accepted their words with quiet humility, knowing that respect in this environment was earned, not demanded. In the solitude of her bunk later, she reflected on the events of the day. Every taunt, every doubt, every attempt to undermine her had strengthened her resolve rather than diminished it. She understood something fundamental. Intimidation only works if you allow it to. Emma's victory in the tactical drill had shifted the dynamics within the academy. She was no longer just another recruit. She was someone who commanded attention, someone who had proven that skill, preparation, and mental toughness could defy prejudice and intimidation. Yet she remained grounded. She knew the road ahead would not be easier. The Academy's challenges were relentless, and new tests would demand not just physical strength, but leadership, strategy, and unwavering resilience. Before sleep claimed her, Emma sat quietly by the window of her bunk, gazing at the moonlit grounds. The echoes of the day's drill lingered in her mind as she allowed herself a small, private smile. She had faced a trap designed to break her confidence, and instead, she had transformed it into a defining victory. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she felt ready. She had proven to herself that intimidation was powerless against preparation, determination, and the courage to remain steadfast in the face of doubt. Emma Carter was no longer merely a participant in the Academy's trials. She was emerging as a force, a recruit whose quiet strength, mental resilience, and precise skill demanded recognition. The whispers that once doubted her now carried a different tone: respect, curiosity, and cautious admiration. And though she allowed herself a brief moment of pride, she knew the journey had only just begun. The next phase would test her even more rigorously, and she was determined to meet it head-on. The trap had failed, but the lesson remained clear. Every challenge, no matter how designed to intimidate or undermine, was an opportunity to rise, to demonstrate capability, and to assert one's strength in the face of doubt. Emma had embraced that truth fully, and in doing so, she had taken another critical step toward becoming not just a competent recruit, but a true leader among warriors. The morning sun had barely pierced the horizon when Emma Carter arrived at the training field for the most anticipated drill yet. News of her previous victories had spread quietly through the ranks, whispered among recruits with disbelief and cautious admiration. Some still doubted her, but even the skeptics felt the tension in the air. Today was not just another exercise. It was a test of dominance, precision, and skill. It was the moment that could cement her place among the Academy's elite, or expose her to public humiliation. Emma's heart beat steadily, despite the tension, a rhythm of focus rather than fear. She adjusted her gloves and tightened her boots, feeling the familiar weight of her duffel and the invisible weight of every expectation placed upon her. The tactical drill had been designed to challenge recruits physically, mentally, and psychologically. But this particular drill was different. Emma had been deliberately paired against Staff Sergeant Blake, the same veteran recruit whose reputation for intimidation had preceded him. He had trained with raw aggression, calculated to break even the most confident recruits. As she stepped onto the field, the other recruits formed a loose circle, anticipating the confrontation. Their eyes flicked between Emma and Blake, curiosity and doubt mingling with anticipation. Blake approached with a smirk, his shoulders broad, his eyes sharp, radiating confidence and aggression. "Ready to embarrass yourself?" he taunted, his voice low but carrying across the field. The crowd snickered quietly. Emma didn't respond. She had learned long ago that words were meaningless against actions. Her silence, coupled with her calm, unwavering gaze, was her first statement. The instructor gave the signal, a sharp whistle cutting through the morning air. The drill began. Blake charged forward with force, relying on his size and aggression to dominate. He anticipated retreat, expecting Emma to falter under pressure, as he had seen countless other recruits do. But Emma moved with remarkable precision, her body reacting instinctively to every movement. She sidestepped, countered, and redirected his momentum with exact timing. Every step, every shift was calculated, born of countless hours of preparation and unyielding discipline. The spectators held their breath as the exchange unfolded. Blake attempted to corner her, pushing aggressively, seeking an opening to overpower her. Emma's movements were fluid, almost effortless, but precise. Her mind was razor-sharp, analyzing his approach in real time, predicting his attacks and countering them seamlessly. The sound of boots scraping the ground and the occasional grunt of exertion were the only audible noises. Yet the tension in the air was palpable. Seconds stretched into what felt like an eternity. In an instant, the moment of truth arrived. Blake lunged with full force, expecting Emma to stumble or be thrown off balance. But Emma anticipated the maneuver, pivoting gracefully and using his own momentum against him. With a swift, controlled motion, she executed a tactical counter, sending him sprawling to the ground. The crowd gasped in shock, unable to process the rapid sequence. Emma moved immediately, maintaining control, pinning him safely but firmly, and completing the drill with precision. The whistle sounded, marking the official end. Silence enveloped the field for a heartbeat, broken only by the shallow breathing of the exhausted participants. Then the instructor's voice rang out. "Carter wins. Unbelievable performance." The words carried weight, commanding attention from every recruit present. Emma rose slowly, her chest heaving from exertion. Sweat and dirt streaked across her face, but her expression remained composed. She had done more than complete the drill. She had dominated it, transforming intimidation into triumph in mere seconds. Blake, still on the ground, struggled to his feet, face flushed with a mixture of frustration, disbelief, and reluctant respect. "I didn't see that coming," he admitted quietly, barely meeting her eyes. The other recruits exchanged astonished glances, murmuring quietly among themselves. The legend of Emma Carter, the recruit they had underestimated, had begun to take shape. She had proven that skill, determination, and mental focus could overpower aggression, size, and intimidation. Emma, however, didn't allow herself to revel in the moment for long. She knew this victory, though monumental, was only one of many challenges ahead. She focused on steadying her breath, wiping the sweat from her brow, and preparing mentally for whatever came next. In her mind, the drill had not been about defeating Blake alone. It had been about demonstrating that fear and intimidation could be neutralized by preparation, precision, and unwavering confidence. The reactions of the crowd were telling. Some recruits, who had previously dismissed her as a novelty, now studied her with quiet respect, perhaps even a hint of envy. Others whispered among themselves, trying to rationalize what they had witnessed. Emma's composure and skill had shifted the dynamics within the group. Where there had been doubt, now there was acknowledgement. Where there had been dismissal, now there was cautious respect. Even the instructors, who had seen countless drills over decades of training, exchanged subtle nods. They recognized the significance of what had occurred. This wasn't just a victory in a single drill. It was proof that preparation, mental discipline, and skill could redefine expectations and challenge assumptions. Emma had demonstrated not only physical dominance, but mental mastery, the kind that inspired both admiration and introspection among those who witnessed it. After the drill, Emma retreated briefly to a quiet corner of the field. Her body ached, muscles trembling from exertion, yet her mind was sharp, reflecting on the rapid sequence that had changed everything. She considered Blake's aggression, the assumptions of the other recruits, and the psychological pressures designed to undermine her. Each obstacle, each attempt at intimidation, had been countered with calm, precise action. She realized that the power of composure, the ability to remain unshaken under pressure, could be more effective than brute force. In the barracks later, whispers of the drill spread quickly. Recruits approached cautiously, offering congratulations, their voices tinged with disbelief. Some sought her advice, others merely observed from a distance, trying to understand the combination of mental acuity, preparation, and physical skill that had enabled her victory. Emma received the words graciously, acknowledging their respect without arrogance. She knew that humility would serve her as much as confidence in the days to come. That night, in the solitude of her bunk, Emma reflected on the significance of the day. The drill had been designed to intimidate her, to test her limits, and perhaps even to expose weakness. Instead, she had transformed the challenge into a defining moment. In mere seconds, she had dominated an opponent who was expected to overpower her. demonstrating that courage, preparation, and mental discipline could turn intimidation into triumph. The memory of her father's mantra echoed in her mind. Pain is temporary. Pride is forever. Today, she had lived that truth. Emma understood that the moment had shifted more than just the outcome of a drill. It had altered perceptions, both of her and of what was possible. The whispers of doubt among her peers had been replaced with cautious admiration, the sneers of skepticism replaced by respect. Blake himself, despite his bruised ego, had begun to view her differently. And Emma, though proud, remained grounded, knowing that this victory was only one step in a longer journey toward mastery, leadership, and enduring respect within the academy. The day ended with Emma sitting quietly outside, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The training grounds, once a place of tension and expectation, now seemed charged with possibility. She had confronted intimidation directly and emerged victorious. She had not only proved herself capable, but had begun to redefine what it meant to face challenges with courage, skill, and unyielding resolve. The seconds that had changed everything were over, but their impact would ripple forward, shaping her path and the perception of those around her. Emma Carter had entered the drill as a recruit, uncertain and tested. She left it as a force to be reckoned with, a presence that commanded respect. The academy had witnessed not just a victory in seconds, but a transformation of character. And as she prepared for the challenges ahead, she knew one truth with certainty. Intimidation could ignite her fire, but it could never extinguish it. She was ready for whatever came next. The moment Emma Carter had dominated the tactical drill still lingered in the air like an electric charge. The training field, now quiet under the late afternoon sun, bore witness to a shift that could not be ignored. Where once skepticism and doubt had filled the minds of the recruits, there was now a mixture of astonishment, cautious respect, and a grudging acknowledgement of her skill. Emma walked slowly across the field, her muscles still trembling from exertion, her mind processing the implications of what had just occurred. She had not only won, she had changed perceptions. The first to approach her were some of the younger recruits, their eyes wide with admiration, voices hushed but eager. I didn't think you'd do it," one muttered. Another nodded vigorously. "That was incredible. You really dominated him." Emma gave a quiet smile, accepting their words with calm humility. She knew that recognition in the academy was earned through action, not words, and today her actions had spoken louder than anything she could have said. She did not need validation from them. The experience itself was validation enough. Meanwhile, the whispers among the more seasoned recruits were less direct, a mixture of astonishment and reluctant respect. They spoke in muted tones, analyzing her movements, her decisions, and the composure she had displayed. Some tried to rationalize it, insisting that perhaps Blake had misjudged her, or that luck had played a part. Yet, even they could not deny the efficiency, precision, and skill that had carried her through the drill. Emma's presence had quietly transformed the dynamics within the platoon, forcing everyone to reconsider assumptions about strength, dominance, and capability. Blake himself was a study in frustration and grudging acknowledgement. He had underestimated Emma, expecting to intimidate and overpower her with sheer force. Instead, he had been met with calculated precision, adaptability, and a mental acuity that left him momentarily stunned. He approached her later, eyes averted but voice steady. "You were?" "Remarkable," he admitted, a flicker of respect piercing his usual bravado. Emma nodded politely, offering no further words. In her mind, the acknowledgement was not about ego or rivalry. It was about the truth of her abilities, recognized even by those who had tried to diminish them. Even the instructors, who had observed countless drills over decades, seemed unusually attentive. They exchanged glances, subtle nods, and quiet murmurs of approval, One of the senior instructors, a veteran known for his unflappable demeanor, approached Emma with a measured tone. "Carter, you've shown not just skill, but composure under pressure," he said. "What you demonstrated today isn't just physical ability. It's leadership potential, tactical awareness, and mental resilience. Few recruits ever achieve this." Emma accepted the praise silently, aware of the weight it carried. Recognition from the instructors was rare, and when given, it signified something far more significant than a simple victory. The rest of the day passed in a blur of activity, but Emma remained aware of the subtle shifts around her. Where there had been snickers and dismissive glances, now there were nods of acknowledgement, fleeting but unmistakable. She observed small gestures, a recruit pausing to let her move first through a doorway, a subtle glance of approval when she completed another task with efficiency. These were not traumatic changes, but in the microcosm of the academy, they were profound. Emma realized that respect was not declared. It was earned, quietly and cumulatively, through consistent demonstration of competence and composure. That evening, in the barracks, Emma took a moment to reflect in solitude. The events of the day replayed vividly in her mind, every move, every calculation, every split-second decision. She considered the way Blake had tried to dominate her, the assumptions of her peers, and the way she had navigated the drill with unwavering focus. Each detail reinforced an important lesson. Skill and preparation could neutralize intimidation, while calm, deliberate action could transform a potentially humiliating scenario into a defining moment of triumph. As she prepared for bed, Emma reflected on the broader implications of her experience. This victory was not merely a personal achievement. It had set a precedent. Female recruits who followed in her footsteps would find a path slightly less obstructed, thanks to the example she had set. She had become more than a participant. She was a symbol, whether she chose it or not. The realization was humbling, yet it strengthened her resolve. Emma understood that every success carried responsibility, not only to herself, but to those who might look to her as an example of what could be achieved through perseverance and courage. Sleep came fitfully, interrupted by flashes of the day's events. Emma dreamed of the drill, the tension of the confrontation, and the moment she had dominated Blake. In her subconscious, the sequence played out repeatedly, reinforcing her mental map of strategy, reaction, and resilience. She awoke in the early hours, muscles sore but mind alert, aware that the Academy's challenges would only intensify. Today had been a triumph, but tomorrow would bring new trials, testing endurance, leadership, and the very essence of her resolve. The following morning, Emma found herself walking to the training grounds with a quiet sense of purpose. The previous day's victory had altered perceptions, but it had not ended challenges. She observed her peers, noting subtle shifts in their behavior, the respect in their eyes, the cautious adjustments in their approach to her. Even Blake, who had approached with skepticism and aggression, now treated her with a degree of caution, a recognition that she was no longer merely another recruit. She had established herself as a presence, one whose skill and composure could not be ignored. During morning drills, Emma applied the lessons of the previous day with renewed intensity. She moved with precision, anticipating obstacles and challenges, and adjusted seamlessly to the dynamic environment of the exercises. Other recruits began to observe and emulate aspects of her technique, recognizing the efficacy of preparation and composure under pressure. Emma did not correct or direct them. She understood that leadership could be demonstrated silently through example. Her actions continued to speak louder than words, reinforcing the quiet respect she had earned. By midday, the significance of her position within the group became increasingly evident. Instructors began assigning her subtly more complex tasks, recognizing her capability and mental acuity. While others struggled with coordination and strategic decision-making, Emma excelled, demonstrating not only skill, but adaptability, foresight, and calm under pressure. She reflected on the irony of the situation. The very individuals who had sought to intimidate or undermine her had inadvertently contributed to her growth, providing challenges that strengthened her resolve and sharpened her abilities. As the sun began to set, Emma found herself again alone in the courtyard, stretching and reflecting. The past 2 days had tested her endurance, her mental fortitude, and her ability to navigate social dynamics in a high-pressure environment. She had faced ridicule, subtle sabotage, and intimidation, yet she had emerged stronger, more confident, and more aware of her own capabilities. In quiet reflection, she realized that the true measure of success was not the approval of others, but the unshakable belief in her own ability to rise above challenge, no matter the odds. By the end of the day, Emma had come to a profound understanding. Respect, once earned, was transformative. It altered dynamics, shifted perceptions, and created pathways for leadership and influence. She had proven her ability to navigate adversity, not only through physical skill, but through mental resilience, tactical awareness, and unwavering composure. The academy had become more than a training ground. It had become a proving ground, shaping her not just into a competent recruit, but into a figure who commanded recognition through the quiet power of demonstrated excellence. Emma's journey in the academy was far from complete, but the aftermath of the tactical drill had marked a pivotal turning point. She had confronted intimidation, uncertainty, and doubt, and emerged victorious. The ripple effects of her performance were already visible, influencing the perceptions and behavior of her peers. As she prepared for the challenges that lay ahead, Emma felt a sense of clarity and purpose that transcended individual victories. She had learned that true strength was measured not only by physical capability, but by composure, strategy, and the courage to assert one's presence under pressure. As night fell, Emma lay in her bunk, exhausted but resolute. The events of the day had cemented her standing, and she understood the lessons that would carry forward. Each obstacle, each challenge, and each confrontation had contributed to her growth, refining her skills, her strategy, and her understanding of leadership. She was no longer merely reacting to the academy's trials. She was actively shaping her path, asserting her presence, and preparing to meet the next phase of challenges with confidence, skill, and unwavering determination. Emma Carter had transformed from a recruit fighting for recognition into a formidable presence within the academy. The shock, respect, and reflection of her peers and instructors were testament not just to her physical skill, but to the depth of her mental fortitude. She had faced doubt, intimidation, and the harshest tests of character, and emerged not only unbroken but strengthened, ready to embrace the challenges and responsibilities that lay ahead. The sun rose high over the training grounds, painting the academy in a golden haze as Emma Carter stood among the recruits, the weight of anticipation pressing on her shoulders. Today was not just another drill or obstacle course. Today was the culmination of weeks of relentless training, the real test that would determine who earned the coveted recognition, the badge that symbolized competence, resilience, and leadership. Every recruit knew the badge was more than a token. It was a statement, proof that the individual had mastered the physical, mental, and emotional demands of the academy. Emma adjusted her gloves and tightened her boots, feeling the familiar weight of her duffel against her back. Around her, other recruits whispered nervously, scanning the course that sprawled before them. Some were seasoned, muscular, confident. Others carried a flicker of doubt in their eyes. Emma could feel their energy, the mix of anticipation and apprehension that hung in the air. She drew a steadying breath, focusing on the moment, letting the echoes of her previous victories settle in her mind. Each drill, each challenge, had prepared her for this, but the real test demanded more than preparation. It demanded perfection under pressure. The instructors lined up, their stern faces masking decades of experience and hard-earned authority. One stepped forward, holding a clipboard with the details of the evaluation. This test is designed to assess your skill, endurance, decision-making, and leadership, he announced, his voice cutting through the morning air. Every decision you make will be observed. Every action has consequences. Only those who demonstrate total mastery of themselves and the course will earn the badge. Emma nodded silently, her expression calm. Words could not convey her focus. Her body language alone communicated readiness. Around her, the recruits shifted uneasily, sensing the gravity of the test. Emma's mind, however, was clear. She ran through the sequence of challenges mentally, mapping every obstacle, anticipating potential setbacks, and visualizing her actions with precision. The physical aspect was important, yes, but she knew that mental clarity and composure were what would set her apart. The whistle blew, sharp and commanding, and the recruits surged forward. Emma moved with practiced efficiency, her muscles responding instinctively, her mind calculating every movement. The initial phase was a timed obstacle course, testing agility, strength, and endurance. High walls, narrow beams, mud pits, and swinging ropes demanded every ounce of precision. Emma's training, discipline, and prior experiences carried her seamlessly through each challenge. Her movements were deliberate, yet fluid, her speed balanced by control. Every second mattered, and Emma navigated the course with an almost uncanny sense of timing. Other recruits stumbled, some faltering under pressure, some miscalculating jumps or grips. Emma, however, adapted in real time, anticipating challenges before they became obstacles. She moved with confidence, a silent force among the chaos of exertion and competition. Each obstacle she conquered reinforced her growing awareness. The badge was not won by brute force or luck. It was won through preparation, mental clarity, and the courage to act decisively under pressure. The next phase tested strategic thinking and tactical awareness. Recruits were given simulated scenarios, requiring critical decision-making under time constraints. Emma's eyes scanned the layout of the field, noting points of advantage, potential hazards, and optimal paths for success. While other recruits debated or hesitated, she made precise choices, executing them without hesitation. Her ability to process information quickly, assess risks, and adapt strategies in real time was immediately apparent. Instructors observed her movements, nodding subtly as she demonstrated a level of competence few recruits possessed. A critical moment arrived when Emma's team faced an unexpected complication, an obstacle that required simultaneous coordination with her partner. Blake. He approached with a mix of caution and lingering respect from their previous encounter. The challenge demanded trust, timing, and communication. Emma assessed the situation, calculated the optimal approach, and communicated instructions clearly, concisely, and without hesitation. Blake followed her lead, their movements synchronized, and together they overcame the obstacle flawlessly. For the first time, their rivalry transformed into collaboration, driven by mutual recognition of skill and leadership. The final phase was the most grueling, a simulated extraction exercise that combined endurance, tactical movement, and mental resilience. Recruits had to navigate a complex course, retrieve a simulated hostage, and transport them safely through a series of physically demanding obstacles. Fatigue weighed heavily, muscles screamed, and the mind threatened to falter under stress. Emma felt the exhaustion settle deep in her bones, but she embraced it. Pain was a temporary companion, she reminded herself, and perseverance was the key to victory. Every movement was calculated. Every decision was deliberate. Emma's focus remained unshaken by the whispers, stares, and subtle attempts at intimidation from competing recruits. She moved with precision, guiding her team with clarity and adapting to unexpected challenges with composure. The instructors, watching intently, noted her leadership, her mental clarity, and her ability to remain calm and decisive under extreme pressure. Emma's performance was no longer merely impressive. It was exemplary. Finally, Emma reached the last obstacle, a wall that towered higher than any she had previously climbed, slick with simulated rain and mud. Other recruits faltered, slipping and struggling to maintain grip. Emma paused briefly, assessing her approach, then executed a perfect sequence of movements, using leverage, balance, and strength. She scaled the wall, secured the simulated hostage, and descended with a controlled, precise landing. Every movement demonstrated mastery. Every action reflected preparation and courage. When she crossed the finish line, a profound silence hung over the field. The instructors exchanged glances, nodding in acknowledgement of what they had witnessed. Emma's body was exhausted. Sweat and dirt streaked her face, but her mind was sharp, alert, and clear. She had completed the real test, not only with skill, but with composure, leadership, and mental resilience. The senior instructor approached, holding the badge aloft. "Carter," he announced, voice resonant, "you have demonstrated exceptional performance, skill, and leadership. You have earned the badge." The crowd of recruits erupted in quiet murmurs and subdued applause. Emma accepted the badge with humility, understanding that it represented more than personal achievement. It symbolized mastery, perseverance, and the transformation from a recruit, striving for recognition, into a capable, respected member of the academy. Later, in the barracks, Emma reflected on the journey that had led to this moment. The whispers of doubt, the subtle sabotage, the intimidation, every challenge had prepared her for the real test. She realized that success was not simply about overcoming others, but about mastering oneself, maintaining composure under pressure, and demonstrating consistent excellence. The badge was a symbol of that mastery, a testament to the years of training, preparation, and mental fortitude that had brought her to this point. Her peers, who had once doubted her, now regarded her with respect and cautious admiration. Blake, too, acknowledged her ability, nodding quietly as he observed her handling of the exercises. The dynamics of the academy had shifted. Emma's consistent excellence had created a ripple effect, influencing perceptions, behavior, and the standards expected of recruits. Emma understood that earning the badge was not the end of her journey. It was a milestone, a recognition of past effort, and a preparation for future challenges. The academy would continue to push her, to test her limits, and to demand more. But she felt a quiet confidence, rooted not in ego, but in preparation, resilience, and the knowledge that she had the ability to rise to any challenge. As night fell, Emma sat quietly by the training grounds, the badge clutched in her hands. She reflected on every trial, every confrontation, and every victory that had brought her here. The real test had been more than physical. It had been mental, emotional, and strategic. She had proven to herself and to others that skill, composure, and determination could overcome doubt and intimidation. Emma Carter had not only earned the badge, she had earned the respect, acknowledgement, and trust of those around her. She had proven that preparation, courage, and unyielding determination were more powerful than intimidation, skepticism, or brute force. The real test was complete, but the journey continued. With the badge now a symbol of her accomplishment, Emma felt ready for the challenges ahead, prepared to lead, inspire, and continue her path toward excellence in every facet of the academy. The academy grounds were quiet in the early morning light, the soft hum of distant drills echoing through the air. Emma Carter stood at the edge of the field, her gaze steady on the horizon. She had earned the badge, a symbol of skill, perseverance, and leadership, but today, her role went beyond personal achievement. She had become a benchmark, a standard against which others would measure themselves. The transformation she had undergone was not merely physical. It was mental, emotional, and symbolic. She had proven that courage and precision could overcome intimidation and doubt. Over the past weeks, the Academy had shifted subtly, yet profoundly. The whispers of skepticism had been replaced with quiet admiration. Younger recruits sought her guidance, observing her movements, noting her composure under pressure, and learning from her strategic thinking. Even those who had once been dismissive now approached with respect, their attitudes tempered by the undeniable proof of her capability. Emma realized that her victories had created a ripple effect, inspiring others to believe that determination, skill, and preparation could redefine what was possible. The instructors took note as well. Senior Sergeant Reynolds, who had observed Emma since her arrival, approached her during a mid-morning break. His expression was serious, yet tinged with respect. "Carter," he began, voice measured, "you've demonstrated more than we anticipated. You've set a precedent, not just in performance, but in leadership. Recruits are watching you. Your actions are shaping expectations, standards, and the culture here." Emma nodded, understanding the weight of his words. She had not sought attention, but she recognized the responsibility that came with influence. Leadership was not a title. It was action. Throughout the day, Emma moved among her peers, offering guidance subtly, never overtly asserting authority, but instead modeling excellence. In training exercises, she demonstrated techniques with precision, highlighting efficiency, balance, and strategic thought. She encouraged those struggling, not with condescension, but with quiet reassurance and practical advice. Her presence became a stabilizing force, a calm center in the often chaotic atmosphere of the Academy. Others began to emulate her approach, noting that composure and preparation often led to better results than aggression or rashness. The legacy of Emma's journey became even more evident during group drills. Teams that had once struggled to coordinate now observed her, learning to adapt her strategies and methods. Her influence extended beyond mere performance metrics. It fostered cohesion, mutual respect, and the understanding that success was achieved not through intimidation, but through skill, perseverance, and teamwork. Recruits began to recognize that Emma's strength was not just in her physical ability, but in her ability to inspire, guide, and elevate those around her. During a particularly challenging field exercise, Emma observed a younger recruit struggling with a high wall, similar to the obstacles she had conquered months earlier. She approached quietly, offering a few key pointers on technique and positioning. With her guidance, the recruit scaled the wall successfully, beaming with pride. Emma smiled, quietly acknowledging the moment. Her victories had opened doors for others. Her skill had become a tool, not only for personal achievement, but for mentoring and empowerment. The Academy was changing because of her example. Even Blake, once her rival and adversary, had transformed his perception. Their relationship had shifted from confrontation to mutual recognition. During team exercises, he deferred to her judgment in critical situations, trusting her decisions and appreciating her composure. Their interactions, once marked by tension and competition, now exemplified professional respect and collaboration. Emma realized that true strength did not lie in dominating others, but in inspiring respect and cooperation through consistent excellence. The culmination of her impact became most evident during a ceremonial assembly. Instructors and recruits gathered to recognize achievements, commemorate milestones, and honor those who had distinguished themselves. When Emma's name was announced, the crowd erupted in applause, not merely for the badge she had earned, but for the example she had set. She stepped forward, badge in hand, a quiet smile gracing her face. The applause resonated, carrying acknowledgement of her skill, perseverance, and influence throughout the Academy. Emma reflected on the journey that had led her here. From the earliest days, when whispers of doubt and attempts at intimidation had sought to undermine her, to the grueling obstacle courses, tactical drills, and mental challenges, she had navigated every trial with determination, composure, and skill. Each obstacle had shaped her, each confrontation had strengthened her resolve, and each victory had reinforced the lesson that preparation and mental fortitude could overcome even the harshest adversities. In the quiet of her bunk that evening, Emma considered the broader implications of her journey. Her actions had influenced perceptions, inspired others, and created a model for excellence. The legacy she had begun to forge was not about personal glory. It was about demonstrating that strength, resilience, and leadership were achieved through consistent effort, skillful execution, and unwavering courage. She understood that every future recruit who followed her path would benefit from the example she had set. Emma's reflection extended beyond the academy's walls. She recognized that the lessons she had learned, composure under pressure, strategic thinking, resilience in the face of doubt, and leadership through action, were principles that could be applied in every aspect of life. Her victories, while significant within the academy, were also milestones in personal growth. They represented the mastery of fear, the power of preparation, and the importance of influencing others positively through skill and example. As the sun set over the academy grounds, Emma walked along the field, observing recruits as they trained. Some glanced at her with curiosity, others with quiet admiration. She noticed small changes in behavior, recruits encouraging one another, applying strategies she had modeled, and demonstrating confidence in their actions. Her presence had become a stabilizing, guiding force, shaping not just performance, but the culture of perseverance, respect, and excellence. In that moment, Emma understood the full extent of her impact. The journey she had undertaken, from the early days of doubt, through grueling trials and confrontations, to earning the badge and the respect of peers and instructors alike, had become a legacy. Her strength was recognized not merely in accolades or titles, but in the subtle, enduring influence she had on others. She had shown that courage, preparation, and composure could overcome intimidation, transform perception, and inspire a lasting standard of excellence. The academy would continue to challenge her, as it did all recruits, but Emma felt ready. The badge she had earned was a symbol, but the true recognition lay in the changes she had inspired and the respect she had garnered. She had proven to herself and to others that excellence was attainable through skill, discipline, and determination, and that leadership was expressed not through force, but through influence, composure, and example. As night fell, Emma stood quietly under the stars, the academy stretching before her like a canvas of possibility. The journey that had begun with doubt and intimidation had transformed into a narrative of triumph, influence, and lasting impact. She had earned her place, not through aggression, but through consistent excellence and unwavering courage. Her legacy, she knew, would continue to inspire, shape, and guide those who came after her, leaving an indelible mark on the academy and on the lives of those who had witnessed her journey. Emma Carter had become more than a recruit. She had become a symbol of strength recognized, a living testament to the power of perseverance, composure, and leadership. The badge she wore was tangible proof of her skill, but the true legacy she left was invisible yet enduring. The respect she had earned, the example she had set, and the inspiration she would continue to provide to those who dared to follow her path.